I'll keep talking so we can. Is it still there? Yes. Oh, nope, it's over there. Sorry.
Here she comes.
Thank you, Mandy. Test. We're having some echo in council chambers. So for those joining online, we're waiting to get that sorted real quick. Is it still going? Yes. Test. Test.
Test 1, 2.
I'm announcing for the audience that there's the rose with my interpretive dance.
Brain turned off for a second.
Do you want me to talk again? Nope. I also just got a text from Lindsay and he can't get in. So to the web, he can't get into the WebEx. So I forwarded him the link that you just sent me because it worked. This room has amazing acoustics. Is it still doing it? Yep. Test.
Yep, it was me somehow.
Am I the only one echoing? Oh, it went away. No echo. What happened in a public meeting? So.
Should know.
Thank you for your patience, Mayor.
Thank you. And I'm going to leave my phone on because I usually put it on airplane mode during the meeting, but I'm going to leave it on in case Lindsay texts back because he sent an error that the WebEx server wouldn't let him in. So I sent him the link that I just used that worked for me. So hopefully he'll be joining us virtually shortly. So we'll watch for him. So back to our regularly scheduled programming. This is a regular meeting of the Port Angeles City Council for July 1st. And as noted, Councilmember Meyer is no longer on the council, so his seat is empty and vacated. And also, Navarra started work today and is not able to, it was a longer day than she anticipated and is not able to be here tonight. So I would be happy to entertain a motion to excuse her absence.
I move that we excuse Deputy Mayor Carr from tonight's meeting.
Second.
All right. Anyone opposed to excusing Deputy Mayor Carr from tonight's meeting, please state your opposition. All right, hearing none, the motion passes. Let's double check that Lindsay is good, and then we'll move on.
Yes, I heard you.
Okay. Okay, great, and we can hear you. All right, can we have the roll call, please, clerk?
Mayor Dexter,
Here.
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
Councilmember Schroman Warren,
I'm here attending the vote.
Councilmember Schwab,
Here.
Councilmember Suggs,
Here.
Manager West,
Present.
Attorney Bloor.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you can please stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. I know we haven't officially made the change, but I'm going to suggest again that we move late items up above public comment. Are there any late items from staff?
Mayor and council, no late items this evening from staff.
Thank you. Are there any late items from council? Okay, I don't hear any. So we will move on to public comment. Really quickly, I guess I could do this after, but one other thing that I want to try tonight based on feedback we got from an audience member at our last meeting and in discussion with the deputy mayor is tonight, if we don't use, when we use unanimous consent, I think it's easier for people to understand no one voted against it. But when we vote, all those in favor, all those opposed, when you speak into your microphone, if you can also raise your hand, then people in the audience can see who voted and people online can see who voted, because if they keep their squares all small, we're pretty small and it's hard to see. I can see that we're leaning in or you're turning on your microphones, but folks in the audience can't. So we'll try it that way and see if that is an improvement so people can see how we're voting. With that, I will stop talking and go to public comment. I don't have the sign up sheet if there is one. But we'll go ahead and start with John. If you're joining us virtually and wish to make a public comment, if you can raise your virtual hand, we will go to online comments once we've had comments in council chambers. So name, whether or not you're a resident, and you'll have 3 minutes, and we'll start with you, John.
Yeah, hi, John Ralston, City of Port Angeles resident. Happy first day of July. I'm going to comment on I-2 budget goals work session. And as I spoke 2 weeks ago, again, I use a different accounting method. I've been to the blackball, usually at 6 in the morning is my routine, and there's no big stack up of traffic. I check a lot of the sailings. There are no cars left on the dock. I look at milling around town, and I'm sure it's obvious if anybody else is looking at that, which means to me, you're not going to get some tax revenue. So I'm concerned about, again, the trailing timeframes that you get from the state, 90 days, 180 days late, and then you're playing catch up. I'd suggest or ask or request that you be a little bit more proactive. Second item I wanted to bring up, again on the budget, and I realize that in particular the capital budget, as mentioned at the last meeting, it's a working document. That's great. And the one item that I brought up was traffic circles. And I mentioned 4 locations. They're all up near the old Lincoln School site or Stevens School site. I failed to mention 2 other ones. That's at 8th and C. It's a 4-way stop. For those who haven't lived in Port Angeles, that used to be a 3-way stop. It's now 4. Gosh, there's not a traffic circle there. Let's go on to 8th and I. Used to be a 2-way stop. It is now a 4-way stop. No traffic circle. I'm not pro or con traffic circles. I just think, and strongly believe that stop signs are a lot less expensive and they take a lot less time for staff to put together projects to put up stop signs. So please continue to look at some of these items in a very serious manner. Thank you.
Thank you, John. James Taylor. It's like you knew I had your name on the list, and so you started heading down.
Hi, I'm James Taylor. I live here in town. I'm looking at this item H1, and one of the things that concerns me is it's under the agenda not requiring a public hearing. And if you try to read it, it's kind of confusing, if not totally confusing. And I'm trying to understand the backstory. You know, I would like council to ask, you know, what the deal is with the money, because, you know, it says 20,000 here and it says 20% over here and then it says 70% over here. It just feels to me that the reason these two pots of money are put together is for some purpose that might not be obvious or might be, I think there's stuff going on in the background, you know, and of course I don't know because I didn't go to LTAC, but it seems that unless council is very familiar with the details behind this particular item, I don't see how it should be without public hearing. And again, I'm remembering the people that complained about fixing the tower on the dock as not being an LTAC item. And so, you know, the item that seems to be mysteriously in the background is the boat ramp on the hook. And I'm just wondering if there's monies that are being moved around in order to achieve that end. And, you know, without a thorough explanation, and I know Latricia isn't here to explain, I do see Ben here, and he might be able to provide us, you know, full accounting of why this measure is being put forth. But I don't think anything that moves around money, and it's the first time people are seeing it, should ever be in that H category of not requiring public hearing. All right, hey, thanks.
Thank you, James. Anyone else? All right.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just clarify that?
Yes. Navarra.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We knew what you meant. So just a clarification for anyone listening, the public commenter mentioned that Latricia isn't here. He meant Navarra. Navarra is not here. She's the council appointment to lodging tax. So just misspoke. I don't have any hands online, so we will go on. We will go on, and we've done late items because I moved those up. So we are at the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, I don't hear anything. Anyone would like to add to the consent agenda? Okay, then I will read the consent agenda as presented. The council minutes of May 27, June 3rd, and June 17, 2025. Expenditure report from June 7th, 2025 to June 20th, 2025 in the amount of $1,402,395.01. PSA 2025-45 Amendment Number 1, 16th Street LID Retrofit Project TR 0715. Fire Department Rescue Task Force Grant and Equipment Purchase. Any comments, questions, or a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, any questions? Okay, since Lindsay's on the screen, I will ask, is anyone opposed to the motion? Please state your opposition. All right, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to item H1, which is the resolution updating Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures. And I'm going to go to Calvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, you'll find this information starting on page H1 of your packet. On May 8th of 2025 and June 12th of this year, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee reviewed, revised, and unanimously recommended approval of changes to the committee's funding work plan and procedures. The updated resolution before you provides lodging tax funding guidance through disbursement categories, funding priorities, and application scoring criteria. New sections of the document provide clearer definitions, guidance for use of excess fund reserves, and application requirements for the annual budgeting request for proposals and their process. Again, this was adopted unanimously during a public meeting of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. This resolution directly aligns with strategic focus area number 2, citywide resource optimization. As proposed, the enhanced policy will ensure a balanced approach to funding of lodging tax eligible expenditures. The changes will also provide better funding guidance through revisions to the priorities and scoring criteria for both non-events and events. Application scoring criteria to the type of request will be provided to ensure a clearer nexus between the priorities and the application process as it relates to the scoring criteria. Tonight's recommendation is to number 1, pass the resolution adopting the updated Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures, and 2, authorize the city clerk to make any grammatical formatting revisions to ensure internal consistency. Finally, Planning Supervisor Broderick is here if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution and then go to questions. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Angeles, Washington, amending Lodging Tax Advisory Committee policies by adding lodging tax funding program definitions, new funding disbursement guidance, and amending the application scoring criteria to reflect state requirements. All right, comments or questions? Latricia, go ahead.
I have a question that hopefully you can help me to understand. On page H6 and H7, number 12 and number 22, they seem almost duplicative of each other. Can you help to clarify what number 12, it says develop innovative opportunities that improve the tourist/resident relationship. And 22, it says support the development of innovative opportunities that improve the tourist/resident relationship. I guess I'm pointing this out because couldn't you have just combined them that say develop and support instead of breaking them out into 2? I guess I'm just like, it's lengthy, and when you're trying to read it and understand what the funding priorities are, I don't know. It's just a lot. When I read it, I kind of feel a little overwhelmed. The other thing that I noticed in here that I'm wondering why it's stated that way instead of asking for documentation underneath high priority may be given to tourism activities that, and I'm just going to go to number 1, and even I think number 3 has it, the word committee's perspective. I think that's subjective, and I'm kind of concerned about the subjectiveness of it. I think it should be based on data that's being collected, that's being provided. So I don't know if I'm the only one kind of like to see the data versus a committee's perspective. So maybe you could provide some feedback on those.
Sure, I think your first point is valid. And combining those two would be something that could be done. Second point is the application process requires a lot of data to be presented, and the scoring criteria help with the committee members to score that appropriately. So it's still, they still have some input because, they're all individual people, but the scoring criteria and these policies should help them in that guidance.
Yeah, I'm still kind of concerned when it says from the committee's perspective. I mean, you could just state have demonstrated a high potential to result in documented economic benefits to Port Angeles. I don't know. I also review, not this, but I'm on another committee that reviews projects. And again, we really like the documentation. So I guess I'm just not liking that subjectiveness.
All right, other questions from council? Amy, go ahead.
Not sure how to ask this one, but in respect to the public comment, do you have like a very concise cheat sheet of the different categories and percentages that are listed on, I think it's H7 and the H8, where it talks about what percentage of the budgets will be available?
So we've moved to a system where we're looking at these percentages being based on state RCW. So the language in there is directly out of the RCW. That's why you also see definitions in the document as well. We wanted to move to a less subjective point of view as to what those things were and have them remain on the state's definition of those things. We have training that we give every year now for all of our applicants. We also have a lot of information on the application to help with guidance on where they should be applying to, because I know that's been an issue in the past. Like what kind of funding are they eligible for? So we don't have anything right now, but that's something we could do in the application process to make it very simple for applicants to understand.
In general, I think this is really well written and mirrors a lot of what the county committees are doing. So I appreciate the update.
Thanks.
I have Lindsay, do you have any questions? I have a question, but no? Okay. I just want to clarify, and I might have misunderstood the public comment, but just wanted to ask you to confirm my understanding that all it is percentages. There is the $1 amount when we're talking about reserve, but otherwise this isn't moving any money. It's just designating, here's the pot. This is how it's going to be broken out.
Exactly. It's a guidance for how they're going to be spending money.
Okay, thank you. I also appreciate that this change, to Amy's point about being more in line with the county and the state, means it's more predictable for the organizations. There are clearly organizations in town that apply for multiple pots of lodging tax, which is totally appropriate and great that we have it. And I think having us be more similar will make it easier for everyone and less burdensome. When I think about how many times we complain about how expensive it is to take a grant, this makes it easier for what are often volunteer groups together. They can potentially do the work for multiple applications in one chunk instead of having ours be a little bit different or less predictable because we change it on a regular basis or whatever. So I appreciate that change as well. Anyone else? I'll speak to Latricia's point. I think I understand your concern about it being subjective. I'm okay with it the way it is because I think when Ben explained, right, there's still the scoring sheet, and this is like a second level, if I understand it correctly, that it gives the committee the opportunity to say, well, this one seems like it hits all these things and it scored really well, and it's in this high priority section. And if we completely remove, I don't know that removing the language changes what will actually happen, or having the language in there changes what will actually happen. And I think the rest of this provides enough framework and updating the scoring that I'm not particularly concerned about that right now. And we can always try it this year and say, well, that didn't work. We need to clarify something. And I think it will, anyway, I just wanted to speak to that. I understand your concern, and I'm not as concerned about it, I guess, is my point for what it's worth. All right, any further discussion? If not, I would happily entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Angeles, Washington, amending the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee policies by adding lodging tax funding program definitions, new funding disbursement guidance, and amending the application scoring criteria to reflect the state requirements, and also eliminating the phrase committees. Let me go to it. Sorry. Committee, I got it. Please be patient. Committee's perspective language from high priority number 1 and number 3.
Okay, I think your motion died for lack of a second, which means I would need another motion if someone is interested to make a different motion. Go ahead, Amy.
I move to pass the resolution adopting the updated Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures and authorize the city clerk to make grammatical and formatting revisions to ensure internal consistency.
Second.
All right, so we have another motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Lindsay's got a thumbs up. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. The ayes have it. Motion passes is what I mean. Quick question. Was that helpful in the audience? Okay, very good. Thank you. Might as well get an update in real time. Okay. Well, let's move on to the budget goals work session, and we may take a break as a part of that. I don't know how long we're going to be.
Mayor, did you want to do H2 first?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yep, I do. Thank you. I felt like we got there real fast. So, yes, H2. Director Curtin.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I was a little concerned I wasn't going to get to talk about Army Corps of Engineers, which is obviously a real passion for all of us here. So I am on page H13 within the packet. I would like to reference council to the site map on page H15. Shows the area of the hook that we're discussing this evening, and the draft resolution is on page H16. So the story here is, this is a long-standing agreement that the city has had with the Army Corps of Engineers dating back to 1976. This is regarding doing beach nourishment and erosion control protection on the hook, and it's directly adjacent on the western side, the straight side of the mill, the McKinley Mill property. So that's the area that we're referencing here. There has been multiple work efforts done in support of this project over the last 50 years. Within the memo, you can see we've had efforts done in 1978, 1985, 91, 97, 02, and 2011. Here most recently, the Corps has approached us and basically stated it is now time to do the next round of beach nourishment in support of this project. We did have a recent change here with the last WERDA bill, which went into effect from the 2024 WERDA bill, went into effect January 3rd, 2025. This changed the city share that would go towards supporting this project. Previously, the city was responsible for 10.9% of the project costs. We're now responsible for 0. So the Corps they're 100% paying for the work associated with this. So I would like to point out this is going to be a somewhat different project. Staff, city manager, myself have had meetings with the Corps. We have been presented some information that the type of nourishment that we are anticipating being placed down there is slightly different than what is existing. We're not expecting the large boulders to go down there. It's going to be smaller materials that'll be intermixed down there, which I know is a previous concern to council in years past. So we look forward to seeing that take place when the project begins. The resolution that's before us tonight is a requirement by the Corps. We're working through their process in preparation for them releasing a construction bid. So this is kind of one of the, as you near the end of their project, this is one of the boxes that has to get checked. And it requires city manager approval to sign off on some forms. We're currently working on what's known as the real estate package, basically verifying who owns the properties that they're working towards. So as these documents get executed, we are expecting this project to be released in the next few months. It will be fully managed by the Corps. I'm very much a passenger on this one. I'm not running this project. But we are doing everything that we can to support the Corps in this project. As I said, it's a long relationship that we've had with them to that effort. So with that said, the recommendation from staff this evening, from the administration, is to pass a resolution authorizing the city manager to approve, sign, and administer all certificates, agreement amendments, and other documents necessary to facilitate USACE's additional work on the Edis Hook erosion control project.
All right, council. Any comments or questions? Lindsay, go ahead.
That motion is read.
Thank you. Can you say that one time, just a little bit louder?
Yeah, sorry. I will make the recommended motion as you stated.
Second.
All right. Any comments or questions? Lindsay, go ahead.
So in the past, we had a cost sharing agreement where the city put money in the corporate. That's gone. That was one of the not quite recommendations, but one of the suggestions that could be done by the Corps staff who presented, I forget, a year or two ago.
Lindsay, can you hold your microphone? Sorry, can you hold your microphone part up a little closer to your mouth? It's just a little bit hard to hear. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. We had also asked them about, their mission on it, which they explained, the Corps explained was operations or maintenance and operation or something like that. But that if Congress added like restoration and cleanup, I forget the exact words, then they could do a lot more out there that could have a lot more value to the whole community. So it looks like we got the cost sharing thing done. What is the status of adding restoration and cleanup to the Corps' mandate for the Edis Hook project?
So council, I'd be happy to address that. And as council is aware, we did work very closely with Derek Kilmer's office on this issue. Effectively, we have seen some changes that were successful through that Kilmer effort, including components that include the Corps having to consider climate change, sea level rise, and incorporation of the term restoration, which we're now seeing in their work product that we previously didn't see. And I think those are three good improvements. I think there was a need for additional study to get to the specific, if we wanted a specific restoration method to be utilized, they wanted to see a particular study done in advance of that particular method in order to integrate that specificity into the federal legislation. So we did not see that level of specificity, but we did see some very positive changes in that direction. And we have also discussed with the Army Corps our desire as a city to ensure that future projects on Edis Hook work more collaboratively in the realm of restoration. Areas not directly in front of the mill, such as this particular location, where we can see some new techniques utilized. I can also share that the State Department of Ecology has pledged their assistance to work with the city in getting the Army Corps aligned with more restorative efforts for the entire hook as we move forward with other similar projects. But we've had some big steps forward, including some of those changes to federal regulations, as well as the elimination of the city's cost share.
Go ahead, Lindsay, with a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that update. That's fantastic. So I'm just trying to understand the procedure. I'm going to vote for this resolution, but I'm trying to figure out what would happen if we didn't pass this resolution. Does that mean the Corps wouldn't be able to do this? Like, we're not putting in money. I'm not quite sure what the records process is. It sounds like it's just looking at property records and getting that over the Corps, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what it is.
So council, just for efficiency, I'll hold the mic and answer that. But effectively, we've been removed from the process with the exception of property ownership interest. And so in this particular location, we have a long-term lease with the federal government for Edis Hook. and we are the property owner in this scenario. So the only role at this point we're asking for authorization for tonight is to sign off on the real estate documents that authorize the Corps to go in and do the nourishment on city-owned property. And Attorney Bloor or Director Curtin can correct me if I have that wrong.
No correction here. That's absolutely correct. All we're focusing on tonight is the real estate documents.
And
I
I would
guess
just
last
add,
follow-up then, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add, if the reality is if we did not sign these documents for them, it would likely get delayed within the Corps process. They would not have essentially real estate authorization from the property owner to proceed with the project, which means it would likely get significantly delayed. It wouldn't be allowed to move forward on the Corps side. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't know our role was property owner as well as financial contributor. So thank you so much. And then do we just own the beach there, or like what do we own in relation to McKinley site?
So council, it is effectively the entirety of the property on the hook. Graphically, I could probably show you in a little bit more detail. But through an act of Congress, the city was granted the ability to have a long-term 99-year lease through the federal government for properties on Eddy's Hook. And so that incorporates areas including a large portion of the McKinley Mill. And to further clarify, from inner hook to outer hook, all the way up to the Coast Guard base from the mill.
Okay. Amy, did you have your hand up? Okay. Latricia?
Well, I appreciate Councilmember Warren's questions, very similar questions I have. But, you know, when we talk about projects that, when we want to save money, projects that just are like throwing money out the door, the beach nourishment along Eddy's Hook is the putting, just doesn't matter if it's large cobbles, small cobbles, it's a very active near shore, and it's not going to stay put. It's just one of those projects. I mean, unless they're bringing in large pieces of wood to shore up some of that sediment or sand that they're going to place, it's eventually, with how active our near shore is, it's just going to wash away. So when you talk about in the big picture of throwing money out the door, to me, the Corps continues to do this as they try to continue with this beach nourishment. The steps and their ideas and their designs. I mean, I haven't seen the design, so I'm kind of grasping thin airs and or out of the air, imagining this beach nourishment project. I mean, it'd be better to use this money to put towards analysis of a beach nearshore restoration project that would result in something actually that would result in positive, like the deposition of sediment that would stay and not go away. So I understand what this is about. We're just a landowner, and I'm going to be voting no to this because I don't think the Corps of Engineers, yes, they're paying for it, and there has been positive steps, but I don't think us continuing to allow beach nourishment in this manner or restoration in this manner is not helping our community. And I would like to see more of analysis and a true design where we can see aggradation of the near shore, the beach, instead of throwing money away to put sand down in hopes that'll stay, which we know it won't, and unless they're going to glue it and I don't think they can glue sand on the near shore. I think that might be a violation. But so I'm going to be voting no on this one. But I understand it's just because we're a landowner and they need access to it. So I really don't think my no vote is going to result in much, but me standing my ground.
Okay, Lindsay, I see your hand, but I'm going to go to Drew. And then I'm going to go and then I'll come back to you. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, so I just have 2 points of view. The first one is, yes, dumping sand in there, that's just going to get washed away. Seems like a waste of money. But the flip side is that they're currently in the design and permitting phase right now. So I don't even know what it actually consists of. I would like to hope the Army Corps of Engineers would have some idea of how to do it. And based off the years that they have done the rehabilitations, it looks like this only lasts 10 years. Yep, and they'll be back in 10 years based off of the chain of contracts that we have in here from the other times that come. This sounds like a no-brainer to sign off of. This sounds exactly like, hey, I want some cable TV installed in my apartment, so I need to go get the landlord to sign off on it so the cable company can come and install cable TV in my apartment. The Corps of Engineers are already, they're in phase 1. They're in phase 1 finishing up to be ready, and they just need us to sign off to allow them to do work. I do think we need to take a look at what their ultimate designs are, whether or not and hopefully there is a comment period for that. But I'm not going to say that they're poor designs, having them not actually be finished yet.
Okay. So we had a very long conversation with the Army Corps in 2020. At least I think it was 2020. I was in my house and we were on WebEx. So it's a fair guess. It was somewhere in the 20 to 21 timeframe, which is, I feel like that conversation really precipitated the more in-depth. I mean, we'd been talking to Kilmer for a long time about the financial piece, because the Army Corps would just show up and be like, oh, hey, it's not in your budget, but it's the year and we need our 10%, whether we had it or not. So that's a huge deal that we don't have to pay that anymore. So thanks to Kilmer for getting that included and changing it, recognizing we were the only city in the country doing that. It's not one of those special lists we want to be on. So I'm going to support this because I think we want to stay engaged. We want to be good partners, because I think staying engaged is going to make it more likely that we get some traction in the future. I'm not going to guess in the very near future that anyone in the federal government is going to be paying much attention to this, but or want to hear the word restoration in the context of environment. But at some point, I think if we stay engaged and continue the conversation, let them do their work. It looks like they've already decided what it is. It's just a different kind of nourishment than they've done in the past. So I'm going to support it so we can move forward, get that nourishment in place, and then keep having the conversations to see if we can get something better in the future. Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, Councilmember Suggs raises some really good points about the long-term planning for this area. It's not sustainable. I mean, there's Tesoro tanks of bunker fuel sitting in the tsunami zone. We have the Coast Guard helicopters in the tsunami zone. They won't be able to get all the helicopters off the ground before the tsunami hits. And they know that. And, it's not well planned. So the question is, how much do we keep putting Band-Aids on an unclean wound versus clean the wound and make it right? And, maybe this is the spot to put your foot down and say, time to actually make a plan. I don't know if we have any design description from the Army Corps. Like, are they planning on just rock, or are they going to try to incorporate wood? Are they going to try and do those weird concrete tetrahedron shaped things? I don't even know what to call them. Like, do we have any design specs on what they're planning?
So I do not have any of the latest documents. So they're nearing the end of their design, and they generally lock that in preparation of getting close to going out for bid, it is kind of a common core practice. They don't want to allow any unfair competitive advantage of a contractor getting a hold of a document, 60 days ahead of other contractors and allowing them to work on their bid. So it's not uncommon. I did ask though, and I would like to see them as well. I don't believe you mentioned the larger concrete, erosion protection. I'm not expecting any of that based on meetings that we've had. I'm expecting this to be, consistent with past programs, but smaller material. That's what I'm expecting to see based on the meetings that we've had. So, and I'm happy when the day comes to get those documents, I'm happy to share those.
Yeah, I guess the question would be if they are going to consider soft armoring and try and see how well that might stick on the beach.
All right.
I can say we have been assured that it will not be large armored riprap as we've historically seen the Corps do. And again, that's, in my mind, a positive step forward.
All right. So, council, would someone like to make a motion? Oh, I guess it's a weird resolution to read, but I'll read it. A resolution of the City Council of Port Angeles, Washington.
I think I made the motion.
Yes, there's already a motion and a second.
Sorry, thank you. I'll read the resolution before we vote. I don't know that I need to read this one, but I usually do. But it's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Angeles, Washington. Very specific. Okay, so we have a motion, but was it the sorry, I don't know why I'm having a total blank in my brain. Was it the recommendation?
It's the recommended motion.
Okay, thank you. Oh, right, because Scott read it and you said so moved. Thank you. Just needed that little brain jog, and it was seconded by Drew. Okay, I'm back in that part of the meeting. Okay, so so we have a motion to pass a resolution authorizing the city manager to approve, sign, and administer all certificates, agreement amendments, and other documents necessary to facilitate U.S. Army Corps of Engineers additional work on the Edis Hook Erosion Control Project. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay. We are going to take a quick break and come back and pick up at item I1. Thank you. We will go ahead and get started again. We are, if for those of you following along, on item I1, the council vacancy notice and application process. And I'm going to go to Nathan for that.
Mayor and council, you will find this item on page I1 of your council packet. And as you all are aware, Council Member Brendan Meyer resigned effective last night on June 30th, 2025. In accordance with the revised Code of Washington, council has 90 days to appoint an individual to this vacant position. Fortunately, council has already established procedures in their council rules of procedure that are consistent with state law. This includes notice of the vacancy being listed twice in the city's official newspaper, the Peninsula Daily News, and appointment of a qualified individual by the remaining members of the governing body. The individual must meet the following criteria. The person appointed must have the same qualifications for the council position at the time of appointment as would a person elected to the position. And two, he or she must be a registered voter and a city or town resident. And in code cities, the person must be a resident of the city for a period of at least 1 year preceding his or her appointment. We have shared in the memo that council has replaced vacancies on no less than 4 occasions over the last 20 years. The most recent appointment occurred in 2023, and tonight I am suggesting council's primary focus be in table 1 of the memorandum located on page I3 of the council packet, as staff is recommending that council direct staff to take and initiate the council vacancy notice and application process as detailed in that particular table. So council, what I'd like to do this evening is actually fill in some of those blanks as a starting point for the discussion and make some suggestions. And I think already in your table 1 on page I3, you'll see that we've suggested we go ahead and notice the application opportunity tomorrow. And that would be July 2nd. We would put it out the door on our website, as well as getting it lined up for the official newspaper ads that I mentioned earlier. Additionally, one of the next steps is the application deadline. When would we like to see applicants submit their application for city council by? And I think there's probably 2 ideal times, either August 4th or August 11th, both of which are Mondays. One would give the applicants a little bit more time to decide whether they want to make the commitment. The other date would give council a little bit more time to see the various applications prior to the opportunity to move forward with selection of finalists. And I'm adding a line to this table as a recommendation, which would be consistent with some of our recent processes. And this new line would be selection of finalists for interview or interview and the creation of interview questions, suggesting that we might take that on August 18th. And then finally, the candidate interviews and appointment would suggest that that might occur on September 2nd. With a similar process outline, similar to those timeframes, that would still leave us with buffers of the September 16th and September 23rd council meetings, if we so needed them, to ensure we still met that September 28th deadline per the RCW and the 90-day requirement for filling the position. So I'm more than happy to repeat those dates, but that's just some suggestions to start the process with. And I would certainly anticipate that we would want a process. It's certainly council's purview to decide, but I think we did have a very effective process at the last go around in 2023. And I think it would be a good process to model after. And I will say far better than some of the processes that we saw many, many years ago when we saw deliberations take place in closed doors. And I certainly would recommend that we keep the process open to the public throughout.
Thank you, Nathan. Thoughts from council or a motion? Amy, go ahead.
I think I am the most recently appointed council member who went through the process, and it had to be interviewed. It narrowed me down. I think that process from that end of things worked really well. And I would I guess my vote would be to have the applications due by August 4th, review them by the 19th, determine who's getting interviewed, and then interview and appoint on the 2nd, giving us a little bit more time. I know we don't have an August, the first August meeting is not happening, but I think giving us a little bit more time to review them during times where we may be taking time off during our time off from council. And it still gives over a month for the applicants to applicant.
Right. That's a thumbs up. Lindsay likes your idea. Drew, go ahead.
Did we want to make any recommendations or suggestions for the actual interview process itself right now, or do we want to wait to do that later?
No, I think we set the timeline so we can get the application part going.
I meant literally how we go about it, not the timeline part.
Oh.
My recommendation for the
That's your
interview.
idea.
My recommendation for the interview process. So I've been interviewed for various city boards, committees, commissions, as well as council. My preferred method for the actual interview questions is you actually have all the applicants in here simultaneously and just go down the line. So question 1, person 1, but everybody gets it. Question 2 starts with person 2 and goes down the line back to 1. That also helps, I've found, in other circumstances for the interviewer to be able to right then and there see what the different opinions are and point of view are. So my recommendation is, unlike when we did unlike when I participated in the interviews with Amy, instead of having us doing them separately, just do them all at one time. Otherwise, the timeline sounds great to me.
Okay. So let's, now that I'm looking at the timeline proposed, let's revisit your thoughts when we look at the questions and decide how we want to do that. Are there any, let me ask it this way, or Latricia, did you want to speak?
Well, I was going to say, I preferred, as back in 2020, I preferred as a candidate by myself with the interview with the council. I think we get a better feel from the individual and get their true, their true thoughts. Whereas if you have everybody in here, they're kind of feeding off of each other. So that's all I want to say.
All right. So we currently have, go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to move to direct staff to initiate the council vacancy notice and application process as detailed in Table 1, to have the application go out on July 2nd, due on August 4th, review the 18th, and interview and appoint on the 2nd.
Council, my apologies. I gave you a bad date. I believe it Tuesday is August 19th.
Yeah, that's what I had on my notes from before, so we'll go with that.
I would like to say the 19th then.
And you seconded, Latricia?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion to direct staff to initiate the council vacancy notice and application process as detailed in Table 1. I'll just restate that for the third time, just to be thorough. Public notice and application tomorrow. Applications due August 4th. Selection of candidates and questions at the August 19th meeting, and candidate interview and appointment on 9/2. All those in favor of the motion, well, let's try unanimous consent. Anyone opposed to the motion, please state your opposition. All right, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And I forgot I had 2 questions. Can I just throw them out there really quickly? Can I assume that this will happen? But I know we're only legally required to notice in the newspaper, which is such a weird legal requirement that has never been updated. But will we also do more than that? Like press release to KOMP, social media, and on our website?
So, Council, I can tell you I'll likely speak to it tomorrow on KONP, as well as last time we went above and beyond the 2 newspaper requirements. In fact, it went in the newspaper 3 times, and we'll be sure it's also listed on KONP.
Thank you. And our Facebook page, I hope.
And our
I just
Facebook
think
page
the
and our
most-
website.
And I know I don't know if other council members have, I've had a couple people reach out to me asking about what the process will be. So I will reach out to them and let them know that we've set to check the website soon, because that information will be posted tomorrow. So thank you. All right. Now we're at the budget work session, budget goals. So I am going to turn this over to Nathan to start, and then I imagine, anyway, we'll have some council discussion.
So Mayor and Council, this is a really important opportunity for Council to give an early update to staff on things that Council is going to be looking for relative to consideration in the 2026 budget. It's important to start early. Staff have already begun the process of entering budget at very low levels, division levels of the city. Very soon, we're going to start entering budget as management. And I think it's important that we make sure we've taken into account the council goals for the upcoming year. And in this case, we predominantly focus on those goals provided in the strategic plan, but we want to make sure we haven't missed anything outside that strategic plan. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Director Kara Zoza, who's going to walk us through a presentation that will update us both on the current financial situation at the city, as well as some of the input we've received from council so far relative to the 2026 budget.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. It's a little difficult to believe that we're halfway through the year and we're talking about next year's budget, but here we are. And so as City Manager West mentioned, we are just looking for a little feedback from council. Next slide, please. And so tonight we'll just be going over some of those considerations that go into the budget each year. We'll take a brief look at our budget to date for 2025 so that we have an idea of what that forecast might look like for 2026. And then we'll be going over the results of the budget goals survey that council and the leadership group took part of. And then we'll look at the next steps for the budget process for the remainder of the year and open it up for council discussion. Next slide, please. So as we're looking at the budget, there are a number of plans that the city puts out each year that really do pertain to the budget in so many different ways. And so it really starts with our comprehensive plan that feeds into a number of city plans, including the budget, the strategic plan, our capital facilities plan, and our long-range financial plan. And all of those feed into our city work plan each year. And really the budget is particularly important in this process because it provides the ability for these plans to become a reality by obligating the funding that's needed to move services, programs, and projects forward that are included in each one of these plans. Next slide, please. And so really we have budgetary needs that are included in each of the 4 strategic focus areas within our strategic plans. Those are our community resilience, citywide resource optimization, housing, infrastructure development, maintenance, and connectivity. And so as staff is building the 2026 budget, we do intend to include these as priorities to ensure that the limited resources that the city has available to it are applied according to the plan. Next slide, please. And then just taking a moment to drill down on that citywide resource optimization. This area is where there are a number of several goals and measures that are heavily considered in the 2026 budget. So that includes maintaining our fiscal health, which includes maintaining our fund balance requirements. That's key to balancing our budget each year. Growing our staff capacity, which includes increasing the number of completed courses and identifying services and programs with needed capacity, always considered within our budget each year. And maximizing our grant funding, which is necessary as we're looking at our revenue options and what's available to us. We do rely heavily on those grants to be able to move many services forward. Next slide, please. And so we have several areas within our city financial policies that address the considerations needed in the budget each year. And so starting with section 2, which is our long-range financial planning. This includes that council should consider the community's ability to pay prior to any tax, utility rate, or fee increases. That reserves should not be used for ongoing expenditures. That our lodging tax and real estate excise tax funding sources should not be used to pay debt or long-term commitments. Next slide, please. That our one-time revenue increases should not be used for recurring expenses. And then as we move into section 3, which is our operating policies, a conservative revenue approach will be taken when developing the budget. Additional operating expenditures will only be proposed if there are ongoing supported revenues. Next slide, please. The general fund will maintain a 25% fund balance. And within our utilities, which are considered proprietary funds, we are going to maintain a sufficient cash flow for 60 days in our electric, water, and wastewater funds and 90 days in solid waste and stormwater. Next slide, please. And so this slide just compares the last 2 historical years to our current year of collection. So we have our 2023, 24, and 25 years as of June 30th for each of those years. And so in most cases, collection is about the same or slightly below when we're comparing to the prior year. So if we're looking at 2025, which is yellow on this graph here, and we're comparing it to 2024 in the very light gray, you can see that there are some areas that are falling slightly below the prior year. And as we're looking at particularly those 3 largest sources of revenue within the general fund, which are property sales and utility tax, all 3 are currently trending lower than in the previous year. And so property tax is about 2.3% lower. This could be due to timing that were received for payments from the county. And so as we move forward within the next few months, we'll be keeping an eye on that. Our sales tax is trending about 5.3% lower than in 2024. And our utility tax is trending about 1.2% below the prior year. And that's largely due to our industrial electric customer and the changes that occurred last year. Also, let's take a look at our building permits. So we did see a large permit in March that's attributed to the increase for the year as compared to the prior year. And so as we're looking at these actuals to date for 2025, it's really crucial that we're cautious and that we continue our conservative approach when we're looking at the budget for 2026, as very likely based on these trends, we will not be looking at any increases and potentially very slight increases if we do see those trends change as we're looking at 2026. So it's really important that we keep that approach as we're moving forward. Next slide, please. And so our prior slide compared the 2024 to 2025 year. And this slide is looking at our budget expectations. And so because we do have financial policies that I just mentioned that include utilizing a conservative approach for the budget, we do, which essentially means that we do budget slightly less revenue than we're anticipating to make sure that we're not expending or overexpending our collection each year in our spending. And so I think this is particularly evident as we're looking at this slide here. So looking at our sales tax as we compared it to our budget. So this is our actual collection for 2025, comparing it to what we anticipated for the budget for this point of the year. We're about 1% below our budget expectations, about 1.8% below our budget expectations in property tax. And again, that could be the result of timing on payments. And so we'll keep an eye on that, but we do expect that to kind of flatten back out as we get later into the year. And then just looking at some of the other areas, our lodging tax is about 3.4% above our budget expectations, despite what we saw on the previous slide at it being about 17% below the prior year. And our real estate excise tax is about 11.5% above our budgetary expectations. And then finally, just looking at our building permits, we have about 50.1% above budgetary expectations. Again, that's due to that large permit that we received in March. However, if we do just take a minute and we remove that building permit, our revenue is still tracking about 5.5% above budget expectations. So that's good news. And then finally, it's important to note that all of our utility funds are currently meeting expectations that we built into our cost of service analysis for each of those utilities. Next slide, please. So it's also important that we take a quick look at our 2025 expenditure outlook. So year to date, our expenditures citywide are on track. We're not seeing any areas that are concerning. We did consider some seasonal spending. So if you're looking at kind of that 50% mark on our budget, you'll see some areas that are over that. And that's because we do have seasonal spending that occurs and then balances out as we get toward the end of the year. Each year, staff is also tasked with maintaining our current budget levels for any of the new year budget projections. So as they're looking at their operating budget, they're required to kind of keep that in line with where they're at for the current year. And this does exclude the council authorized salaries and benefits increases that were approved as part of the collective bargaining agreements over the last year. And then finally, as we're looking at our utility and special revenue funds, those are all remaining at or above the appropriate reserve levels. We do have one exception, and that's our solid waste fund, which is below those expectations, but we are seeing that continue to build on that reserve. So that's exciting to see. And we do anticipate that we'll see hopefully a return to a more normal level in the solid waste fund within the next couple of years, because we are seeing that trend upward in that fund balance. Next slide, please. So as we look at our 2026 budget, we do have a number of considerations that need to be taken into account that have already occurred. So first, we have obligated real estate excise tax funds, as well as PENCOM excess reserves, which includes excess revenue for our joint public safety facility building. So that's important to note as we're looking at those projects. The second item is that we have collective bargaining agreements that have obligated funds for personnel costs for 2026. So as we're moving into that year, we already know that we're going to have some increased costs associated with personnel. Third, we have continued high inflation, as well as some pretty uncertain economic conditions. And so this has created not only increased costs, but very conservative revenue outlooks for 2026 in all areas of the budget. So we are considering that in our projections already. Next slide, please. We also have our general fund reserves that will need to be rebuilt to meet our 25% fund balance requirements that are in the financial policies that I just mentioned a few moments ago. The 2025 budget met revenue expectations, but there were a number of restricted revenue sources that we received, and so we weren't able to include those in our reserve, which coupled with some expenditures that were over budget. So some areas for overtime and some unexpected emergency spending. And so we're looking to rebuild that fund balance. That's something that we'll have to take into consideration as we're building that 2026 budget to ensure that we have enough revenue to build that up. And then finally, our costs for prosecuting and jail services will need to be revisited as part of the 2026 budget process as our contract is ending. Next slide, please. Okay, so about a week and a half ago, we asked City Council to complete a survey to assist with the conversation on budget goals, which did include about 6 questions. And we will just briefly go through each of the highlights for each one of those, just noting that we are summarizing the results. So as we go along for the City Council conversation, please do feel free to elaborate or clarify if needed, because I am just summarizing the results of that. Next slide, please. All right, so our first question asked, are there other policies or necessary modifications to current council guidance that you see as essential prior to the development of the 2026 budget? And so a couple of answers were the reconsideration of the no new debt policy and what are the most effective investment strategies? Next slide, please. Our second question, if sustainable revenue sources that could be used for any purpose became available, what would your preferred option for use be? And we also asked that you please include how this relates to the 2025 to 2026 strategic plan focus areas. So those were those 4 areas that were mentioned previously. Those focus areas have not been included on any of these slides just because there was limited amounts of space on the slides. However, I'm happy to pull those survey results up if you are looking for those. So some of the responses that we received were for police and fire personnel, for infrastructure projects that focus on wastewater capacity, incentivizing land development and vacant land conversion, and special improvement districts, so things like streetlights and safety measures. Next slide, please. Our third question asked, are there any other items you believe should be considered for elimination or addition in the 2026 budget? And also how that included or related to the strategic plan. And so the response there is spend funds where the biggest return is. So creating jobs, tourist attractions, and Instagram bait. Next slide. Our question 4 is City Council approves 6 revenue sources to help balance and build the city's budget. The only remaining revenue that has not already been implemented is the border area fuel tax. And so the question is, should we pursue the border area fuel tax? And responses largely indicate that this is not a good time to bring this forward, and that other options may be more beneficial to the city, such as additional steps for vacant properties. However, others indicated that if it's a voter-approved initiative and if support is considered for Blackball, that this could move forward. Next slide, please. The next question, are there other revenue sources we should pursue for the 2026 budget year? So we have a number of responses here. So investments, fees for the boat launch, camping permits, and ball fields. Surplus property, invest in municipal broadband, parking enforcement, recycling, fishing and boating permits, and utilization of more lodging tax funds for projects. Next slide, please. And then the last question, are there areas of the budget you would like to receive more or less information about? And so there were a few questions that came out of this one, including does and can the city receive any of the national park fee? What % of hotel cost goes into lodging tax, and can this be increased? Could we add tourism impact fees elsewhere and for different reasons, such as conservation and parks? And are there fees associated with cruise visitors? Next slide, please. All right, so we asked our city leadership team that you see up here tonight to also take the same survey. So we're just going to briefly go over those results and compare them to some of the council responses. Next slide, please. So our first question is the same that we asked council. Are there other policies or necessary modifications to the current council guidance that you see as essential prior to the development of the 2026 budget? So the majority of the leadership staff answered no. However, some responses were also provided, including focus on staff capacity, the permanent community development technician, so that's a temporary position currently. And we move forward with phase 2 of the business licensing plan approved by City Council. Focus on infrastructure to support housing, solutions for vandalism and theft, and adjustments to the fee schedule for public records. Next slide, please. Second question asked about those sustainable revenue sources and if they could be used for any purpose. What would the preferred options be? Answers included quite a few. So we actually have a couple slides for this particular question. So develop a grants division for all departments, public records management assistance, increase the fire department 24-hour shift staffing, staff capacity for sidewalk repairs, patrol officers controlling reckless drivers and speeding, growing staff capacity. Next slide, please. Expanding public safety services, assistance shoring up the fleet replacement plan, GIS support, field crews in the water, stormwater, and streets divisions, the courtyard improvements and new maintenance shop, records transparency investments, and internal service needs to support new programs. And so a number of needs, but staff, particularly leadership, is aware of the budget realities, but just making council aware of some of the things that we see within the budget that could use some support. Next slide, please. And so are there other items you believe should be considered for elimination or addition in the 2026 budget? The majority answered no, but there were a few responses that were provided. So looking at a general government project manager, preservation of existing positions, a moderate risk waste facility at the transfer station, impact fees, and a fire station bond. Next slide, please. Question 4, should we pursue the border area fuel tax? The majority of the responses indicate that this is not a good time to bring this forward from our leadership group. Next slide, please. Are there other revenue sources we should pursue for the 2026 budget year? So a few ideas and considerations, just looking at that 0.1% of 911 sales tax, that is a countywide initiative. So that's something the county would have to move forward. And the city has made requests for that for them to do so. That we revisit the master fee schedule, grant opportunities to offset staff time, the consideration on whether there are other districts that could be identified, so similar to what we're looking at in the PBIA, impact fees, and fire station and ladder truck bonds. Next slide, please. And then the last question, if there are other areas of the budget that they would like to receive more or less information about, and the majority answered no on this question as well. Next slide, please. So as we're looking at our next steps for our budget, as City Manager West mentioned, we are in the process of our departmental budget entry that goes through July and August. Starting late in August, we'll have some city manager meetings to go through the department proposed budgets, and we'll begin with our budget balancing to finalize that budget document. We're currently estimating that that will be available for council and citizen review on October 3rd. And on October 28th, we do have our 2026 budget work session scheduled to go over that preliminary budget. And so council, what we are looking for today as part of your discussion is a balanced approach to our budget. And so we're looking for some consensus on items that council would like to see included in the budget for review or any changes. If there is a change that involves increasing expenditures, we are looking for some direction on programs that could also be reduced, or for revenue options that might be available to offset those costs. And then we are looking to keep that strategic plan at the forefront. So we are looking for how that would tie into the strategic plan as well. And so with that, I will turn the time over to City Council.
All right. Thank you, Serena. I appreciate hearing the leadership team's suggestions too. There were some things I was like, oh yeah, what about that? Sometimes it's easier to think of things when you're all chatting about stuff. So are there any council members that would like to jump in with questions, clarifications, elaborating on what they want, or just really feel passionate about what they're interested in and want to convince us to take some action on that? Go ahead, Latricia.
Well, I just want to say great job with the presentation. It was helpful, and I really liked seeing the staff comments. Thank you. Lots of that's one thing we always ask. Well, what are the staff saying? What do they say that they need? And there's things in there that I didn't think of. But I agree that it's not a good time to bring forward the taxes or increase of things. But I was wondering, it's something that we talked about in the past, Nathan, is fee in lieu of taxes with the Olympic National Park. The county is the one who receives this funding from Olympic National Park, but the city of Port Angeles is providing a lot of services to support the activities of Olympic National Park. And I think that's one area that we can further look into. And I know it's probably trying to work with the county commissioners to work with them. And maybe if there's pushback, that we go directly to Department of Interior and Olympic National Park and say that we need to be a party to those discussions. And I think we should also consider any other federal entities that border the city of Port Angeles that we could potentially also benefit fee in lieu of taxes with them also. Can you also clarify? So earlier today, we had a discussion about Edis Hook, that we are the landowners. We have a lease. The people that have something like, I'm just gonna, like the airbase, even though it's the lease to us, does the airbase lease to the city of Port Angeles?
The airbase does not. The airbase is not incorporated as part of the lease that we have.
Oh, they're not. Okay.
Correct.
Well, what about the other entities that do they lease from the city?
There are other entities along the way, including McKinley, as well as Tesoro, that would lease from the city of Port Angeles and do lease through historic leases dating back to Crown Zellerback, which will be part of your phased reporting on all of our leases.
Okay, because I was thinking maybe those are things that we need to relook at. How much are those leases to those entities? Because again, we continue to provide services for those, and every year costs increase. So it seems like our lease should be proportionate to what we're spending to provide services and infrastructure to get to those sites. So those were things that off the top of my head, but I do think we do need to be very conservative and more cautious this year around as we're moving forward. Unfortunately, I think one of the things that's, I anticipate that the grants are going to be more competitive than they have been in the past. And they're not going to be as much available out there. That's what I'm anticipating. But I don't know, maybe if we have a continuing resolution, maybe it might not change that much. I guess we can cross our fingers. Then it just goes to a CR. But I lost my train of thought. Grants, yeah, we could go after grants and stuff, but there won't be as much there. So again, I know what I was going to say. The train came back. That as we move forward, we just need to be more cautious in moving forward with our plans that we've identified, like our capital facilities, transportation improvement plan, our wastewater plans to make improvements to infrastructure. But as we're cautious with moving forward with capital projects and acquisitions and purchasing equipment, if we choose, we have to be adjust. It goes back to one of the things Lindsay always highlights is deferred maintenance. It just increases our deferred maintenance. So as we're being more cautious, I think that's going to be an end result of deferred maintenance, our projects taking longer to get done. And I think it's just the economic structure that we're in right now. So those are my thoughts. And sorry, I just sent you my email this afternoon, Serena, on my ideas. I'm like, wait a minute, she asked for that. And I forgot. So, but you did get it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Lindsay and then Amy and then Drew.
Yeah, I guess just briefly, the goal is to do more with less, as is the case every year because of the structural deficit we have in our general fund, by which I mean we're only able to bring in an increase of 1% in property tax, which is about a third of our revenue for the general fund. But our costs in that are mostly personnel costs, which mostly go up with the cost of living, which is usually higher than 1%. So, figure out where to be efficient and make it work, because Governor Ferguson wasn't willing to increase that property tax cap for us and for every other city and local government too. I think my comment would be on, I think there was a comment on, was it regionalization or something about efficiencies? Let's look at what partnering with Collin Fire District 2 would look like. Is there opportunity for a regional fire district? Let's look at what collaboration with Collin PUD would look like on the electric utility. I think those are potential areas where we could have economy of scale in what are otherwise very small local governments. Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. Amy, go ahead.
Okay. I maybe was the only one, but I would be okay with bringing the border area fuel tax to a public vote. I think if the residents vote for it, then that would be fine. I think that the way I researched it was about 2% for transportation improvements. I don't know what would qualify for that, but I think fixing up where the coho comes in and making that like a grand spectacle would be awesome. I am curious about the ball field and how that works, and if there is a way for the city to be more productive in that partnership. I also probably very not supported, but also talked about parking enforcement and permits and things of that nature. I suggested the national park fee too. I'm not really sure how that works, but that was something that I had a question on. And I think big picture really is, as far as revenue goes, my thought went to like tourism impact fees and where we could potentially add those. Either we can we add additional impact fees to lodging that is earmarked for certain things? I guess my real plan or goal while I was answering these questions is really to try to get opportunities for our parks department to get some additional revenue. So I was thinking of tourist impact fees and things like that, and also questioned how it all works with the small cruise boats that come into town, and if there are fees associated with that, and if not, can there be, should there be, have we looked into that kind of? The end. Thank you.
Do we want to pause to answer where there are questions, or do we want to just gather everything up and then go to you guys when we're done?
So, Mayor, I think to be fair to everyone, I think a lot of these questions are going to require some research, and ultimately, particularly if there's a council consensus on some of these items, we definitely want to spend time researching them and thinking about them and implementing them for the budget. But my suggestion would be that we continue with the discussion, get all of the council input, and see where we are from a consensus perspective.
Great, thank you. Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, so just a couple of notes that I took. First off, it's been repeated almost entirely, I'm not for trying for a gas tax at this time. My understanding is that is a voter initiative, so regardless, it would have to go to a vote. And especially seeing how today our gas tax increased 6 cents per gallon in Washington State, I think, well, there's never a good time to talk about gas taxes, but I definitely think I'd rather look at different sources if possible. My focuses for priorities are increasing our capacity for law enforcement and firefighters as well, mostly so we can focus on vandalism, traffic enforcement, code enforcement. And unless things have changed, the stat for the fire department that I have from, I think, a couple of years ago is that our engines respond to more calls than any of the engines in Seattle, which is nuts to me. And if I'm wrong or if that's changed, I would love staff to correct me because I've been quoting that one for a long time. So if I'm wrong and we actually have gotten, so we have fewer calls per engine per any of the stations in Seattle, I would appreciate that. So I would definitely like to see us work on increasing our capacity from the first responder point of view. With that, making sure we're focusing on phase 2 of the business licensing. If those recall that the business licensing have built into the ordinance that initial funding goes towards downtown law enforcement, code enforcement. But then I think it's also important, and I believe it was mentioned on one of the staff slides about bringing back kind of the CED liaison for the different Port Angeles groups, Waterfront District, chamber, the mayor goes to the chamber.
Chamber's a council assignment.
Okay. Is a council assignment, but in years past, a long time ago, pretty much all the business associations, all the groups had a staff member attend their meetings. So there was always someone from the city in attendance to be able to answer questions, but also directly solicit feedback. And I'd like to see us be able to go back to being able to do that. So I think a lot of, which is also built into the business licensing ordinance that we passed as directly one of the funding sources. So I think focusing on phase 2 of the business licensing to be able to do our increased capacity for law enforcement, firefighting, as well as a CED liaison.
I'm going to go and then I'll go back around. So I also was a council member who suggested that admittedly without coming up with a revenue source for them, that I would love to increase police and fire personnel. And I recognize that it's really important that we figure out a way to keep staff we already have, because I think we were really thoughtful about how we built those positions, and they're important positions. And I feel like this is one of those no small parts, only small. There's a no small part, only small actors. All the positions are important, but I do have concern that. And so maybe this isn't the budget year, but I'm going to keep saying it because I think it is a concern that I have, and it's something I want us to be mindful of, is that as we're working on building more multifamily housing, for example, a lot of those places will be filled by people who are already here and who are currently living in their car or couch surfing and things like that. So I don't know that we're necessarily in the very short term going to see that building, if you build them, they will come kind of thing, that we're going to be suddenly have this influx of people. And I'm also not a firefighter, but I would imagine that it takes significantly more personnel to fight a fire in a multifamily structure than it does in a single family home that is separate from other structures. So as we increase density, we're going to need more. I think Lindsay has a point, and I know there are conversations happening about where there may be partnership opportunities beyond mutual aid, and certainly mutual aid is benefiting all of our districts right now. But I think my thought was perhaps that more with police than fire, that if there's an overtime cost that we're paying because particularly with police, and I know both of those departments have overtime that just happens. Your shift isn't up on a fire and you're like, well, I'm going to go home now. So you stay until that's done, and then you offset that somehow, or we pay overtime. So adding personnel doesn't necessarily help in that regard. And obviously police, if they're out on a call and their shift is over, you stay until it's done, and then you probably stay and write your report. And so there's those unavoidable overtime things, but if there are ways that increasing staffing would reduce the overtime burden, then I think we should look at whether there's a place where that line crosses and see if increasing staffing would be a wash. I did spend some time, I will admit, with the fire department recently, with both police and fire recently, and that was something they asked for, that their quality of life would be significantly improved by an extra person on each shift. I may not be presenting that exactly correctly, but I also think there is a cost to people leaving because the workload is higher than it is in other places. And so I think that's another piece we need to think about. And maybe I will acknowledge that this is a hard budget in which to say that's the metric we should be using, but there is certainly a cost associated with people leaving that we have trained. And so if bringing in a couple extra people helps other people stay, then I think it's worth investing in that. One of the things that I think I was the one that mentioned in terms of vacant property is particularly with vacant residential property. And I'm thinking in this particular case of the house down the street from me, which has been empty since 2019, owned by out of town LLC that doesn't particularly care that it's empty, is potentially following up on a vacant property registry, which we have talked about before as a way to increase revenue. And where exactly that would go, I don't have super strong feelings about it right now. And the other thing that I will throw out, which I did not put on my survey, but crossed my mind tonight in reviewing some of the comp plan draft, is the possibility of tax increment financing in a couple of areas. And I don't know if that was what I don't know. It seemed like that was a suggestion made by community members, which feels a little bit different than if it's the city saying, hey, maybe that's an option. So certainly not something I would want to impose on something, but on an area. But if there was an area, thinking about downtown, for example, if as a whole, that whatever boundary we drew, if people were willing participants, something I might be interested in learning a little bit more about anyway. And sorry, that was really long-winded. Okay, I will stop there. Latricia, you had your hand up again, so go ahead.
I'm glad you brought up the TIF tax incremental financing. It was something too that I brought up in the past too as an option, and the payment is usually from as property taxes increase that because you install infrastructure, so you're able to build out. So that'd be a great area, a great funding source for those areas that we need to build out infrastructure so development can happen. But I'm going to go back to, and I've said it in the past, and this is, it's about, you kind of have to spend money to make money on this one. I'm tired of traffic violations. I'm sick and tired of traffic violations. I sit at a red light and then all of a sudden a truck to the right of me just goes speeding by through the red lights. I am just in downtown corridor. It happens. I'm tired of people passing me on the shoulder on the right-hand side. I'm tired of people. I'm going the speed limit down Marine Drive and people are tailgating me and passing me on the left. I'm really sick and tired of the people know that they're not going to get tickets, that there isn't a lot of activity. So I would like to see us invest in traffic cameras that can produce tickets for violators that are on the stop sign or stoplights and stuff within the city of Port Angeles, where we do see a lot of traffic violations. I think it's about time that people are held accountable for their reckless driving behavior when, it just provides, we talk about safe, walkable, multi transportation routes around here. It's just when you have people who are not following the rules, I don't know, maybe it's I'm a rule follower and I don't like to, I get nervous and I'm like, no, I know it's midnight and the light's red and there's nobody around. No, I'm going to sit until it turns green. I'm just that person. So I think that's one way we can look at in those funds. Again, I would hope that they would go back into the police department because I do think that, we need to solidify some of those funding sources for our police department, for our fire department, for the programs, the paramed program, the rediscovery program, because those programs are only funded, or not only, but we use a lot of grant funds to fund those programs, or settlement funds like the opioid settlement funds that we received. So those were the two things. I think there was one more. I think Drew talked about it. I'm trying to rack my brain. That's what it was. Sorry. On retail sales, maybe Serena, or can we push back on the state on the percentage of sales tax that comes back to the city? Is there any momentum? Because we only get a certain percentage of that comes back. Is there any momentum for jurisdictions that are pushing back, saying, state, we need more of these retail dollars that you're taking? I forget what the percentage is that we get, but I'm wondering if that's something that we can look into, if there's some pushback that we can do on the state with that. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. We could certainly put that on our legislative priorities. They do periodically, I think this year probably wasn't the year, but I think the sales tax credit for law enforcement is that much closer. So maybe next session when they consider those things, that will happen. And that's not, I think those are the ways that we do that, is we suggest areas in which we would need to use it. And that was, so that may come in the future. I think there was interest, it just didn't make it across the finish line this time. Though there's other funding potentially available. Anyone else want to go again? Okay. I have one more thing to say, which just a follow up, because I did sort of, I did laugh when looking at the survey, and I thought the irony that we're going to be talking about that border area fuel tax was the last thing on our list on the day that the state preempted us, I think, on that opportunity in the short term. So I think it's worth keeping on the list for a future consideration. But I think we don't need to charge more for gas. The bus is free and that's helpful, but it doesn't work for everybody. Is there anything else? Is there an opportunity for us to potentially, I'll go to Lindsay in just a second. Is there an opportunity for us to potentially talk about this again at the next meeting? Just because now we've all had this conversation and thinking about it we may get, I didn't hear anything where there was any semblance, nothing really rose to consensus level. But I wonder if in thinking about it, plus Navarra will be here at the next meeting and hearing from her might also change things. I just wonder about that. If you want to think about that for a second while I go to Lindsay.
Mayor, if it helps for us to summarize what we heard tonight, I agree there's not a lot of things that are standing out of where we had 4 council members say, hey, this is really important to all 4 of us. So I think we could certainly bring back a summary and perhaps a short discussion on council thinking through a little bit more what some of those items are and where there might be alignment. I think that might be helpful. I will not be at your next meeting, but happy to make that happen.
Okay. Does that seem like it would be useful to people? Okay, I'm getting some nods. Lindsay, go ahead.
I'm confused by what we mean by consensus here. I don't object to any of the things other people brought up. I didn't hear any objections from other council members about any of the things anyone brought up. So to me, there was consensus to research all of these items. I realize that might be more than we have capacity for. So if that's the situation and we need to prioritize things, that'd be great. But that's my interpretation of consensus here.
Okay. Thank you. So if we get some summary stuff from staff at the next meeting, an opportunity then for Navarra, now I did it, for Navarra's input, then revisit that and maybe narrow down. Anyway, we can look at it and decide what we want to do, if that's all right. I know you won't be here.
Council, I think that would be great. And just if I could respond to Councilmember Sherman-Warren, I think too, it's important that many of the ideas we heard tonight are good ideas that we want to explore no matter what. And I think that we're going to take a look at some of those items, whether it's between now and the next meeting or into the future, because we want to make sure that we can get to a balanced budget. And if there's opportunities for revenues, but also opportunities to enhance the capacity and fulfill the goals of the strategic plan, we want to make sure that that's going to happen.
Great, thank you. Lindsay, go ahead. And then Amy.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. I heard from Manager West that, there's nothing that's consensus. And so I'm hearing that it's staff are voluntarily taking ideas back, or kind of, I guess, point of clarification, what's going on?
So council, for right now, our plan is to bring back a summary of tonight's discussion and effectively continue that discussion at your next meeting. And simultaneously, perhaps do a little bit more research on some of the ones that have standout answers to them. I think some of them are probably questions we could have tackled tonight, and I suppose still could if council wants to take some of those on. But I think by waiting until the next meeting, we'll have an opportunity to provide some of those preliminary answers on some of the items, as well as give council more time to think about what the priorities are. And as Councilmember Sherman-Warren did, I think certainly it would be valuable to hear from others. We don't object to those other items mentioned, and that might be another way to go about it.
Thank you. Amy, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't object to any items that have been brought up and also won't be here for the next meeting. So want to maybe put in a plug so that everyone is aware of where I'm standing. And for me, I think additional revenue sources can be staff capacity, but I think specifically we need to look closer at how we are supporting our parks department, especially if we are able to initiate any tourism impact fees, because I mean, our folks that are coming to visit us are visiting our parks and our playgrounds and our bathrooms. And so I think, that is something that when people come to visit and then they leave and they talk about like our facilities and things like that, I think that is a big draw and can be a big deterrent for folks that are coming in. So I just want to plug that in. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Lindsay, is your hand just still up or is it up because you wanted to speak again? Okay, thank you. Okay. Let's just leave it there and pick it up at the next meeting, and we'll go to, we'll then hear from Navarra as well. Okay. Let's take it won't be really quick. It'll be 5 minutes. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and wrap up. Thank you. All right, our break is supposed to be over, so we should reconvene. Sorry, we can finish our conversations after the meeting. Right. All right, thank you all. Got so quiet so fast. All right.
Because we don't have Brendan.
That's right. Oh, no snacks either. All right, so we are at council reports, and I will go ahead and start with Lindsay.
Hi, it was great to be at Association of Washington Cities with Drew and Navarra last week. I'm actually off from work this week, so slowly road tripping back, visiting Roslyn right now because it's hot in the Tri-Cities, but I was there over the weekend. What to know about AWC? Trying to think of what the highlight was. I toured a water treatment plant. I toured the Hanford site and also some road developments that were kind of out in the middle of nowhere at Kennewick, really begging the question of whether they're going to have enough economic activity to make fully building roads in the sagebrush worth it. We'll see. I think the biggest highlight for me was learning about Hanford. And basically, they pull water into a pump and treat facility in order to reverse the flow of the aquifer that would otherwise have the radioactive and toxic water flow into the Columbia River. So they're basically pumping at a fast enough rate to make the water flow away from the river rather than toward the river. It's one of those situations where, you know, they know they're going to be cleaning up for at least 61 years, probably longer. The long-term goal is to encase the liquid radioactive and toxic material into glass. I'm going to mispronounce the VIT process. There's a longer name for it, but that's what they shorthand it to. That basically makes it into a solid rather than a liquid so that it doesn't flow. That's the long-term plan. And it was, you know, a lot of history to see that. And I thought it was pretty special to see. I think you can actually go see it through the National Park Service's Manhattan project. And so there's a lot to see there, including the VIT plant, including the pump and treat facility, and including Reactor B, which we actually didn't get to on a 3-hour tour. That was the highlight for me. I'll take it over to whoever's next. Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. Amy.
Thank you. I have a couple of things. I can't remember if I had already reported on this one, so this might be a repeat, but our homelessness task force did complete the 5-year plan and it did go to the commissioners, was approved. Our next job will be to come up with our evaluation measures that will be measuring the agencies that are participating in those objectives and goals. So that will be fun. I also attended, not because anyone asked me to, but because it interests me. I attended a joint meeting with the commissioners and the Behavioral Health Advisory Board because they had this joint meeting to talk about how Clallam County is going to spend their portion of the opioid settlement money. And I thought, I'm interested in how that works out, and our city should be not duplicating efforts and be involved in that. So that process sounds like there's no urgency to that, and so it's going to be a couple of meetings spread out. So if anyone else is interested in that topic, you can find that on the agenda. Today, I was invited to meet the new station chief. I think that's the title of our Border Patrol, and got a tour of the facility. They spent a good 90 minutes sharing with me what they're doing and how they're doing it, and we were very open to hearing more questions and having more conversation about that, and really was wonderful to have that conversation and to hear from them how things are going. And again, just sort of putting myself in the room when I had questions. So I appreciated the invitation. Chief went with me, and it again, open to having additional people come in and chat with them as well. And then I just want to put a plug in that on Friday, it is the best day of the year to live in Port Angeles. It's the 4th of July celebration. Highly recommend the Lawnmower Derby. I will be there cheering them on. I don't have a lawnmower that I've entered yet, but I plan on it. And just wanted to, I guess, say out loud in a public meeting that we were not asked about the fireworks. We did not cancel them. And we're not as evil as it seems. And also, Seattle canceled their fireworks for the next 2 years. So take that. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Drew.
I was one of the other council members that got to go to the AWC annual conference. It was my first time attending the annual conference, though I have got to go to action days before. It was 4 days of really good sessions that I took, for me anyway, copious notes. A couple of highlights. So there's some really good beat in there, including updates of the other Washington, as well as economic outlooks. That are really good information. Truthfully, though, most of it would not be very surprising to most people. Exactly what the economic outlooks of things are. So things that I did take notes of that were completely new to me. First off was using AI in a city hall setting, being mindful of public records requirements, security implications, but also to aid staff, not for reducing staff. The two of the big things I pulled from that was, first off, open public records requirements require us to track anything that goes into the AI, where the AI pulls those records from, and then whatever gets spit out of AI. The other one is, even if we are not actively using AI in a city administrative format right now, we do need to make sure we have some sort of city policy in place, specifically addressing ghost or black site or whatever nebulous term you want to use. Basically, people who have ChatGPT open up another tab on Chrome and using that, just to make sure we don't run afoul of any sort of Open Public Meetings Act's requirements. The other one that I specifically took notes on, because I managed to learn new things, was let me find my notes. Look Who's Talking, Social Media, the First Amendment, and Public Records. That one had a really good breakdown from the U.S. Supreme Court of at what point are comments considered public comments versus private comments, and what exactly the metrics are for measuring those, which is useful. The more interesting one that I found out on top of that is, of course, we who have had plenty of Open Public Meeting Acts as well as record keeping requirements training knows that we need to make sure our city staff has all those. If we get a text message on our private phone, screenshot that, forward it to our email, someone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We already have those things in place. What I had not ever thought of was, if I comment in something that, per the current metric from the federal government, indicates that might be a public record because I commented on Facebook, screenshot that, because if the original person deletes the comment, my comment goes away, that record is no longer retained. And so the download everything I posted on Facebook as a way to go through my records doesn't work if the original comment was deleted. So if you comment on someone else's stuff, make sure you screenshot that and retain that for your record keeping. Otherwise, I was able to make some really good connections. One of the council members in Linwood owns a game store. Very tiny Venn diagram of people that would fit for. So I'm hoping he and I will be able to communicate back and forth on a wide range of topics. But the opportunity to be able to sit around a room of, I think, 500 people in attendance who are all either elected officials or city staff members, and being able to network, communicate, find out what issues their cities are facing, how those differ from ours, but how we can also help each other. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, Drew. Latricia.
Well, I don't have much to update folks on, but just a reminder that July 8th, Field Arts Hall, I believe it is the Rainier Meal Cleanup Open House. And I think it starts at 6 to 8 in the evening time. It's on the city's webpage. So go to the city's webpage. You'll see it where we've posted about it. But it's a big deal. It impacts our community. So please make sure you folks show up to attend. There's also a Maritime Washington photo contest out there. I think photo contests are kind of fun to do. So I would imagine you just Google Maritime photo contest for Washington State, and you might find something on it. Maritime Washington. Enter the 2025 Maritime Washington photo contest. Submitting a photo of the heritage area. Deadline is July 9th. So Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. So if you have a great photo, get one submitted. That's it. Pretty simple.
All right. I will just say that I want to put in a little pitch. The public can probably, I don't actually know how you find it, so if you're interested, let me know. But for council and staff, the Cal Ripken baseball tournament starts on July 9th, and those of us who have been in the room for a while remember that we heard from a number of folks involved in that regarding lodging tax. And we did end up awarding them some. They've got a whole slew of things happening around that. And one of the things is a need for volunteers. I'm not expecting that, we may have some staff members who, one in particular sitting up there at least, probably would be good at keeping books for one of the games, doing some scoring, scoreboard work and that sort of thing, but also concessions, booths, and everything is like a 2-hour shift. And I just think it's a really big deal for our community that this Cal Ripken tournament, that we were selected to be the host of the Cal Ripken tournament. And I would love to see the city as an organization support them. And the best way to be at a tournament at home is to have volunteers from your community fill the volunteer spots, so you as a parent don't have to do that, so you can actually watch the games. So let me know if you're interested. Also for staff, Carmen helped create the sign-up sheets, so she could probably get it to you too, if anyone's interested. But I already picked up one shift with Carmen actually. And there's no like cooking food, it's just pouring pop, handing out chips, things like that. So pretty low barrier. You don't have to be an expert and you don't have to have worked in the snack shack before. And I'll stop there and turn it over to Nathan.
So Mayor and Council, I want to start off with something that I know has been very challenging for our community this week. And in particular, I just want to apologize for the inconvenience that has been seen relative to the 8th Street construction and the sealing of the bridges. And so I want to make sure we give Scott Curtin, our Public Works Director, the opportunity to talk about some of the complexities of that project, why it's necessary, and why ultimately some of the difficult challenges and pain that we're feeling this week is actually a really good investment in the long term. And so I would like Director Curtin to speak a little bit about some of the challenges relative to that project.
Thank you, City Manager West. So yes, as Nathan said, there's no question. I'm not going to sit up here tonight and claim that we're not all experiencing the impacts of shutting down the 8th Street bridges. I would like to say, this is we walk a fine line trying to balance fulfilling the ultimate needs of the community, right? So when we did the CFP, we talked about, not being able to do a mill and pave, project, and we're trying to stretch our dollars as far as we can. So part of that is looking at alternative methods to not defer our maintenance and extend the service life. And it's also built around, how much can we tolerate, as a community. So I've been asked this week, several times, why can't you do it at night, or why can't it, be split into multiple phases and things like that. We chose this method based on being, what we felt was meeting the need at the lowest cost with the quickest turnaround, minimizing the overall impact to the community. There's no question closing a major thoroughfare like that is challenging. The product that we're using on those bridges, it does require installation during daylight hours. And frankly, warmer the weather, the better. Direct sunlight, the better. It affects the curing time of the material. Also, its application. If you've watched any of it being placed, it's a fairly liquid material, which also has its challenges on splitting it up, right? So when you pour it out over the roadway, you're best to get it down and covered as quickly as you can and let it cure, and then move on to the next piece. Our contractor out there he's actually been very good. He's trying to do as much as he can, as fast as he can. He's been working further into the evenings than we originally discussed in an effort to try and get this project completed as fast as possible. We were tracking for a Thursday completion, and we're hopeful, knock on wood, there's a possibility we might actually be done tomorrow night if things continue to go well. We're supporting him in those efforts. I also get asked, why don't you communicate with other agencies around town? We absolutely do. We do communicate with the state on their projects. We communicate with the county on those projects. There's a difference, though, between communicating and directing. I don't get to tell the state, when to tell their contractor not to do whatever they have planned to do. We let the state know. We actually changed some of our plans to do this work. We could have done this work earlier in the year. With having that the 101 closed, we deferred that, knowing that was going to be too impactful. We were told it was going to be opened, which is why we set up our contracting and things to take place during this time. And we were told that they weren't even going to be doing partial closures, which they continue to do. There's no question that's challenging. I'm not making excuses about it. It's impactful to all of us, and frankly, it's exhaustingly so to a lot of staff. We live in a beautiful place. It's a beautiful town. We've got a large number of creeks that run through our community, and we have a limited number of bridges that are no small expense to build and maintain. I can fully appreciate that, we don't live here for it to feel like, that I-5 corridor in Seattle, right? I do understand and I get that. I just want folks to know we do take into consideration very seriously how we're spending taxpayer dollars, and we try to spend those as effectively as possible. And we do communicate and share our intent towards our project with our partners. Sometimes it works well. Sometimes it does not. In this particular case, there's no question it could be better. And I'm working to address that. With that said, I do often get asked, from the community, what can we do? What can we do to be better? If truly to support our small town and how we expend these dollars, the best thing that you folks can do for me right now is extend a little bit of patience. There's no question things can be done differently. Those things often would be more expensive ways of doing those things, which just means that fewer CFP projects can get done in later years. So it's a balance. And if I struck it wrong on this one, I'm happy to chat about that further. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm looking at this 4 days to get this work done, and then we can all move on with our lives and on to the next project. And a little bit of grace right now, a little bit of patience from everybody would be tremendously appreciated by everyone. And with that, happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Nathan, do you want to?
So Mayor and Council, unless there's questions specific to that topic, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the remainder of my report.
Go ahead, Drew.
Less a comment, more a statement that I always like to bring up because we frequently hear from our constituents that we don't understand the impact some of these projects take. Two of the council members, myself included, live on Pine Street. So we are very well aware of the impacts that any of the closures related to the bridges or 8th Street have on all of us. So no, we are not deaf as council members. We are very well aware and are communicating with staff to try to get things done as quickly as possible.
Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, WashDOT likes to say when we talk to them at the regional planning meetings that nobody likes it when we're doing the work, but people like the product and the outcome. I think having those bridges be reliable is key, and we don't want the bridges to fail because we don't maintain them. Obviously, maintenance is hard. So I'm just curious what the actual closure status was. Was 101 alternating one way and 8th Street bridges were closed, meaning it was 1.5 capacity because Marine Drive was the only thing open, or was something different?
So today was the first day of the closure. So both bridges are closed. It's a continuous closure, not a couple hours. It's started at 8 a.m., 6 a.m. Started this morning and is currently scheduled to be done at 8 o'clock on Friday morning. So complete closure. And then the highway, the Tumwater work on the highway is still alternating one lane with a light. So it's backing up.
Mayor, if we can clarify.
Yes, sorry.
Or Scott, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the actual closure on 8th Street began yesterday, Monday.
Sorry, it's Tuesday. It was yesterday.
And, originally it was contracted to go through, we anticipated about a week from start to finish on this thing. And it's, with the assistance of the contractor, we are able to reduce that timeline by their working extended hours. Relating to the DOT project, they are continuing to operate single lane closures. But I am aware this morning they had a concrete pump truck in the area, and they had both lanes closed for I'm guessing 15 to 20 minutes, and that is the type of thing that we specifically asked that could not happen because of what we had going on with 8th Street, and I suspect DOT, they have a contract, they have an executed contract with the contractor that allows that contractor whatever access he needs to successfully complete their project. That's what I suspect is going on. They're not willing to request some additional assistance, some grace from that contractor. We were hoping it's 4 days, guys. Help us out here a little bit. And for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be happening this week. So apologies for that.
Thank you, Scott. Amy, go ahead.
I just wanted to validate that sometimes being a public servant is thankless. Thank you for showing up for work today.
All right, Nathan, go ahead.
So, Mayor and Council, on a more positive note, we did kick off today the City Shade Street Tree Program for this fall. And that program originally was developed by community member Paul Forrest. And this program aims to increase our community's tree canopy by planting trees in residential neighborhoods and throughout our street corridors. So now in its third year, city residents can request up to 2 free trees through an online application process that can be found on the city's website as of today. And approximately 115 trees will be available this fall following the city's Arbor Day celebration. So that's good news, and we look forward to lots of participation in that. Additionally, I did want to make sure we had the most accurate information, because the last opportunity to comment on the Rainier Mill cleanup, as Councilmember Suggs shared, is coming up July 8th at Field Hall, and that does start at 5 p.m. With an official presentation beginning at 6 p.m. open house format prior to that. And then in addition to that, I do want to remind council, we will have a special council meeting occurring on the 22nd of July, where we'll have the opportunity for council to provide specific city comments relative to that cleanup, which I think is a really important opportunity. And we'll also incorporate a number of good presentations that better inform us relative to that overall project. So council, that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. All right, now we're at our second public comment period. So if you're joining us virtually and wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. We'll do in council chambers first and then go online. And okay. John, go ahead.
Fire away. Hi, John Ralston, City of Port Angeles resident. Thanks for the explanation with the cluster that's going on. I still have some questions about it that concern me. Why are they sealing the bridges? I don't need an answer right now. Those bridges are about 15 years old, plus or minus. Are we going to be sealing the Tumwater Bridge? I know the bridge that goes up Black Diamond Road. I don't think that's city, county. Is it going to be sealed? There's a number of bridges that are on Highway 101, just east of the State Patrol office. Are those bridges being sealed? There's relatively new bridges, 15 to 20 years old. Are they type sealed? So it brings me back to this. Did we have poor design when we did the 8th Street bridges? Poor quality work, poor construction? I don't know. Second item is you got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lights that are getting fixed or repaired or upgraded. Prior Public Works Director heard me talk about the light at 8th and Lincoln going in northbound. That turn signal goes on every time, whether there's a person in the turn lane or not. I don't see it on the list. The budget goals, great presentation. I wish that packet was online so I could view it ahead of time, print it if I wish, so I could make notes as the presentation was given. Just a point of improvement. In the data online, the item put together by Attorney Bloor, July 1st, regarding properties. Couple recommendations on the Old Wolverton Fire Hall. I know I brought that up 2 weeks ago, and by coincidence, it's showing up here. I don't think it had anything to do with my comments. But I'd like to know when it was declared as surplus, because you did a request for proposal previously. I don't know if it's surplus then, surplus now. Has it been surplus for 15 years? The library at $1 a year, that's ridiculous. It should be sold and let private industry change that into housing without any restrictions or covenants being directed by the city. Third, vacant land, the one First Street Plaza. May I continue?
If you're
same subject matter of this letter.
Like, can you finish your sentence?
Yes. Yeah, big audience. First Street Plaza. In the memo, I wish it would say the size of the parcel, and if there are any options to purchase the parcel from the lessee. Should have a commercial appraisal as to its value and a related item as to what it should be leased for. And that would be the same sort of comments for the North Olympic Healthcare property.
Okay. And now I just realized I need to ask you to stop because your mic is off and no one can hear you online. So
thank you.
Can you email us the rest of your questions about the properties? Would you be willing to do that? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice mic drop. Okay, so James Taylor, I don't think you're going to have to drop my mic, but you never know. So we just went through a budget goals meeting, and except for one small item, it never mentions where we're going to save money. The survey doesn't have as a question, how can we save money? You know, even Lindsay said, you know, we're looking at economic shortfalls. And I didn't, you know, I heard a wish list of, oh, I want to, you know, I want to add another person here, another person there. And so, you know, I heard on the presentation that, you know, we want all the grants we can get, but really, if the grants don't advance the city, you know, all they are is busy work. You know, I tend to look at the new stoplights in downtown as really not doing anything over the previous lights. Do we have the potential to sell surplus property? I think that would be a source of revenue. Yeah, you don't have, you know, a piece of empty land X, but, you know, if we're not using it, then, you know, we could potentially sell it. Are there programs that we can just flat out delete? You know, maybe reduce, I'm sitting here looking at the county holds the best low-income housing meeting there is. Yet I know the city is doing duplicate efforts that, you know, could potentially be curtailed, and we can focus on that. I heard the thing, staff will be maintained. Can we do with less staff? We've grown staff by 18% since 2021. And, you know, all the staff wish lists, you know, say we want more staff, we want more staff. I think we, you know, at some point, and I want to pick on Courtney because I really like Courtney, do we really need an arborist? Okay, as far as like, can we defer equipment purchases to true end of service life, such as these $63,000 pickup trucks that got replaced with new electrics? And I didn't get cut off. All right, hey, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Glenn Barbieri. I'm a Port Angeles resident. Yeah. Last few days, I've been thinking about taking this opportunity to make for me, a major announcement. There's something I'm ready for. But what I realized tonight, and thinking about what to say here today, is that I'm not sure enough other people are ready for me to be ready. So I'll work on that. Now, recently I had an interesting conversation with somebody who's been homeless in this community for 8 years. They came up with, they thought was a really good solution to the problem. Basically, there's a lot of vacant land and parking lots. Their idea was, hey, set those up for basically homeless camps and have them properly, you know, supervised so people don't have to worry about stuff getting stolen or other stuff being burned. On surface, from his point of view, that's an idea. I also know, however, the problem with infrastructure. How are you going to do with water? How are you going to do with, you know, the trash? You know, who's going to patrol, make sure the place is safe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, from a city standpoint there, it does not sound like a very viable solution. From his standpoint, it sounds like the perfect solution. I don't know what the middle ground is on that. That's more like what 4PA is doing something along those lines, but it took them a long time to get that little bit of land, you know, for what they're doing. And duplicating that, say, 25 times over, yeah, that could be a problem. So I don't know what the middle ground is on that. They're simply just reporting his idea so that they can report back to him and say, hey, I told them. And Lindsay here, you know, he mentioned something about Hanford. Hanford is very much on my radar. If I could visit there with my own resources, I would soon. So, you know, that's something I'm going to have to figure out and see what I can do in that regard. That's one of the things that's about what I'm ready for, but I'm not sure if other people are ready, as it were. So that's it for now, and hopefully I'll have something maybe definitive in a month or so. So keep you informed. And the comment about he's coming up about the vehicle acquisitions that's there. I understand the city's and the staff's philosophy on that. So it's a balancing act. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barbieri.
Hello, I'm Ralph Davison, Port Angeles city resident. I had questions more than comment, I suppose. I just wanted to ask what the product is that's being applied on the 8th Street bridges. If I do a video in order to abridge what happened tonight and mention to people your explanation of the difficulties that you're facing, what's the name of that product, just so I can reference that? I'm trying to help the public be nicer to you. I also wanted to ask if it would be worth considering you doing a project like this in the future, scheduling it for right after July 4th rather than right before it. And then I wanted to ask about the application for seat number 7, if someone is a current candidate in the upcoming election, if they're allowed to apply for that seat as well. And I understand with the sequencing of this, if I'm not entitled to answers at this moment, but I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you very much. We can get you your answers probably before you leave. I do not have any hands online. Any other council chambers comments? Okay, then thank you very much. We are adjourned and I'll look forward to John's email. Oh, Lindsay, go ahead.
I was just going to add, there was a comment about the Hanford site and trying to visit. If you go to Manhattan Project National Historic Park online, it's on the National Park Service website. There's a bunch of information there. It's probably the next best thing to visiting.
Okay, great. I will make sure. I think Glenn's still in the room, so he heard your comment. Thank you. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.